There has been one mod that I've been seeing in my comments over and over again. One modification that I just can't seem to escape from. The whispers in the trees. Bannerlord Immersion project. Talk about the Bannerlord Immersion project. Where is the Bannerlord Immersion project? Please. So fine, I get it. Have it your way. Let's talk about this mod, because this could truly be the biggest overhaul modification for Mount & Blade ever. Genuinely, I'm not over-exaggerating in saying this. This has probably been one of my most requested videos of the last few months. For a modification that isn't even out to the public, I just haven't seen anything else being recommended so much. So, what is it? Well, the Bannerlord Immersion project is a mod aimed at reworking and overhauling the vanilla setting of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. It's trying to make it more dynamic, interesting, and feel like a more believable historical period and setting. Of course, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord has never claimed to be entirely historically accurate. Yes, it does use inspiration from a lot of parts of different factions and clans throughout history, especially with their armors and weapons and the cultures that they try and represent. However, the overall feeling and aim of Mount & Blade has never been to be an incredibly historically accurate game. It's a completely made-up world in Enquiries. The factions never actually existed, and whilst you see so many similarities and parallel with real historical places, it's never been, how would you say, Kingdom Come Deliverance. But as you can imagine, overhauling Mount & Blade to this extent is no mean feat. Do you remember the Florist expanded mod for Warband? Yeah, it's kind of like that, but on crack. Every single major faction will be completely overhauled, and they've already completed most of it so far. So what are the new factions that are being added in? Well, of course, as well as major factions that will complement the ones that are already in the base game, there are going to be plenty of minor factions that you can get your hands on. On the Imperial side, we have the Ilavani clan, the Dinos Desert Dogs, the Order of the Alpha and the Omega, and the Kazatit Horsemen. Yes, these guys are actually part of the Imperial minor factions, even though they're very much reminiscent to the Kuze faction. This is because the mod is trying to add in auxiliary forces. Forces that, yes, they take from other cultures in terms of weaponry and armors, however they're paid for and interact with other clans. So we can see here the Kazatit using the native weapons and of course the fighting style of the Kuzates, yet they use the Imperial heavy armor, and that's who is funding their war efforts. But that's just the Imperial minor factions that have been implemented so far. It's not just them. Every main faction in the game will have smaller, lesser known clans beneath them, each of them having their own unique twists on the cultures and their fighting styles, but of course they're all coming together in alliances for massive battles when needed. There's even a new type of clan completely, a mercenary faction. These guys will be able to fight for any lord that pays them good coin. They will be pricey, but a price worth paying for victory. We can see an overview of the map here, how it will be split up between the factions. You can see it's much smaller than what we get in the main game. In the original Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, in its vanilla state, the areas and regions and kingdoms that are owned by each of the factions are much bigger. Yes, giving them more resources and showing their history, how they've conquered in the past, yet it's not exactly the most fun for gameplay. And you might be wondering what I mean by this. Well, having smaller kingdoms and smaller sections for each clan is going to create much more tension between factions. Throughout the campaign, it's going to be even more paramount to create allies early on, before then wanting to expand and needing to conquer and then subsequently making enemies. So you get it. It's going to be an almost entirely new game. I can't get over the amount of time and effort that has been put into this modification. I know I'm going to be showing so much of it on screen in terms of gameplay that we've been shown so far. However, this isn't even a fraction of all the recordings that have been released by the developer. Speaking of the developer, Alpha Omega Man is the lead developer on this modification, and he has a YouTube channel posting all of the work that they're doing at the moment. So make sure you go and check that out for the full introduction videos of all the new factions, troops and clans, showing off sieges, battles, and everything that this mod has to offer so far. But speaking of Alpha Omega, in preparation for this video, I spoke a little bit with him, and I asked him about the mod directly. So what is the main aim for this mod? Directly from the horse's mouth. Well, he said that they want to completely expand and broaden the scope of the sandbox, adding in 6 new cultures, 12 new kingdoms, and a plethora of mercenary and minor factions and accompanying units and assets with them. I've noticed in the developer blogs that they're talking about adding in completely new armors, weapons, shields, and everything that you can imagine above. However, in terms of modeling and texturing, they're struggling a little bit for that. So if you are interested and you know how to do this sort of thing, make sure you go and check out the Bannerlord Immersion mod DB linked in the description, and you might be able to get in contact and help with development. They're also hoping to rework the vanilla aspects to feel more historically coherent and authentic, though keeping it distinct and unique from real world history but not straying too far, creating an in-depth and carefully crafted lore to go along with everything that they're putting in the mod. One of the main roles in their development team is the lore writer. They have pages and pages of interesting history and backgrounds for all these factions, their creating. Because whilst they are trying to make it historically accurate, they are still creating factions from nothing, using inspiration from other cultures, yet making their own history and stories within the game. Additionally, we have new mechanics that are being investigated, but they haven't been firmly established yet. They want to do reworked recruitment, more expensive troop recruitment, and upkeep to make it a little bit more realistic to how you'd really fund an army in the real world. There's also going to be a greater gap between the lower and the higher tier troops, making it harder to upgrade to those top levels and top warriors in your army, but once you do, it's going to be so worth it. One of the most interesting mechanics that the developer told me that they want to put in is a cultural conversion mechanic, meaning that when you capture a settlement, when you own some fiefs and villages around it, throughout time, it might change from one culture to another, meaning that if you go into the Khuzait lands and you take their castles and villages, yes, they will have that Khuzait culture and feel at the beginning, like in Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. However, the more you establish, build, grow armies, and capture that region, the more it becomes more like you. Let's say you're of the Imperial faction, the settlements will change accordingly. Not only do we have these massive overhauling additions with mechanics and new factions, but there's also going to be some smaller and less obvious additions, things that aren't so clear at first glance yet will dynamically change the way the game is played overall. The hopes are to expand the already massive Bannerlord campaign map and increasing the average party size, giving the player opportunities to run much bigger battles or sieges. Well, that goes if their computer can handle it, of course. There are also hopes to change the way money is made, making taxes more rewarding and giving a real and true feeling economy to the game. I mean, the base game does do this, and I would say it kind of does it rather successfully. But when it comes to really running a kingdom and having your own sub-economy, especially when it comes to realistically trying to fund an army and the things that you need to do to accommodate for that, the base game lets the player off a little bit. And this Bannerlord Immersion project is trying to make it harder. It's trying to make it more difficult and really feel like you're accomplishing something when you conquer lands, when you grow armies and you're able to sustain them with the kingdom that you've created. And I think that's the overall thing that's getting people so excited for this. When a game comes out, the mods that come out first are the Overhaul mods with new time periods, Romans, Warhammer, Elves, Lord of the Rings. They're all fun and some of them are my favourite mods ever made. However, it's the mods that are working in the background, the ones that don't necessarily catch the eye of the casual player, but the fans that have played a game like Bannerlord for so long know that this mod isn't just going to change the way it looks, it's going to change the way the game plays and almost create a completely new feeling game entirely. We've seen it in Total War with the Divider Imperium mods, we've seen it in Warband with Floris expanded, and now it's coming to Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord, an overhaul mod that's going to completely change the way that you approach and play a game. But please let me know, what are the things you're most looking forward to about the Bannerlord Immersion project? Is it the new factions? Is it the new mechanics? Or is it the bigger armies, the bigger battles with new cities and new scenes that you can fight for control over? Make sure you leave your comments down below and I'll be sure to check up on them. Click the link in the description if you want to go and support, maybe even become part of the team of the Bannerlord Immersion project. And thank you once again to Alpha Omega Man for letting me use some of the footage for this video. But leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.